me when.
Oh, and action.
Oh. I didn't hear the sorry. Right, ready?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Alejandra and I'm sitting here with Megan Pankiewicz, and we're doing our first live podcast of Laugh, Cry, and Learn.
That's right. Or is it Laugh, Cry, and Learn or Laugh, Cry, Learn?
Oops, Laugh, Cry, Learn, sorry.
That's okay. All right. Okay.
Your turn.
All right. Do you want me to?
It's the first one, that's why.
It is. I know. It's weird. All right. So wait, do you want me to try starting it? Is that what you're saying? Your turn? No, you do it again. And then I know after you do it, I'll say, I'll just say who I am. You said my name, which is good. And then I'll say what.
You want me to say your name or no?
Yeah. Say my name and then I'll say what my position is. Okay. All right. So just go ahead and then I'll just edit out the beginning.
Should I say good morning? Hello?
Let's say just hello, because they could be listening to it at any time. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Alejandra and I'm sitting here today with Megan Pankiewicz on our first episode of Laugh, Cry, Learn.
So I am the staff development teacher at Rockville High School. I also teach a section of AP Language and Composition.
And I'm the resource counselor at Rockville High School. We have a caseload of 1,500 students approximately at Rockville.
So we are both members of the leadership team. And one of the pieces of our work this summer has been to learn more about social emotional learning. And so one of the texts that we've been using is this book by Dr. Marc Brackett called Permission to Feel. And we've been incorporating some of this learning into our leadership team meetings throughout the summer. But Alejandra and I wanted to really take the time to dig into a lot of the ideas that Dr. Brackett presents and basically use this podcast format to have a discussion where we can continue to explore Dr. Brackett's ideas and explore more about social emotional learning, not just for ourselves, but for the staff. And we chose this format because we thought that creating a podcast would provide more opportunities for people to listen, especially so they don't have to be on their computers any more than we already are. So, you can be listening to this while you're washing the dishes or going for a walk or folding laundry or ignoring your children, whatever you need to do to help you sort of learn more about your own emotions so that we can survive this, not just survive, I would say thrive, right, Alejandra? So we can survive and thrive in this crazy new environment. Did I capture everything?
Yeah, and I think that's why we picked the title, Laugh, Cry, Learn, because as we learn and go through this and we're learning about different emotions, there have been times reading the book that we have laughed. There have been times that we've cried, and every emotion in between we've experienced not only through COVID, but before. And, feelings are going to change and they're going to be different when hopefully, this pandemic passes too. So it's targeting a little bit of everything.
So that's a good, thank you for teeing me up, because I wanted to start our conversation by asking a question that Dr. Brackett says he always asks before he speaks to a group of people. So he always asks, how are you feeling right in this moment? So Alejandra, that's the question I'm posing to you. How are you feeling right in this moment?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it could be an easy question, but it also could be a very loaded question. So depending on which answer you'd like, I think sometimes we can easily go say, okay, I'm fine, and we are done with the conversation and we move on. But if you want a more in-depth one of how I'm really feeling, I'm a little nervous. I'm excited. This is a first for me. I don't know if it's a first for you.
It is.
podcasts before and I've watched them, but I think it's great to be doing one.
Yeah.
And I hope we're able to have guests and have other people and we can learn from them as well. I'm kind of excited too because I'm home by myself today.
Lucky.
My son is at my parents' house. We're starting the routine, like the preschool routine. And my husband went to work, so I'm able to work, and also some house things like do laundry.
Right.
No, that doesn't go there. This goes there. So let me turn it to you. How are you feeling?
That's a good question. Well, yes, we've already covered that. So I am also nervous and excited. I was definitely, I think, anxious before we started. It's kind of interesting because like you and I talk all the time in different ways. And so it's kind of funny to now be having a conversation. Like I've noticed it's kind of funny to have a conversation in this format that feels a little more formal and isn't right. And isn't just the two of us like, da, 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 just running around our conversation. So I feel better now that we're in the conversation part. Like the opening felt just sort of very formal, which it needed to be, but I like that we're now just having a conversation. That feels much more natural to me. And it's kind of interesting because I've listened to a lot of podcasts, but it's different to be a part of one than it is when you listen to them, they sound so natural, right? And unrehearsed and like people just do this. But I think just like with teaching, with anything creative, really, teaching, writing, art, the people who are masters at their craft make things look easy when they're not. Like it looks easy because they've been doing it for years and years and they've been practicing and it's not the first time they've tried something. So this is our first time creating this podcast. And part of it, like I said before, was looking for ways to help us manage the first time of being in this online teaching world, which I think is scary to a lot of us. Like I know I'm very nervous about the school year starting. My kids are here right now. We don't have family who live nearby. So like we're going to have to figure out how the four of us can be in this home doing work and school in a way that is less anxiety ridden than the spring is my goal, because the spring was kind of crazy and I don't want that to happen again.
And I have to agree with you. I think that, well, first of all, I want you to know that it was like 11:40 and I'm like, where's the Zoom meet? Where's the Zoom meet? Where's the Google meet? And I was getting anxious and nervous and I'm like,
funny.
I can't miss it. But excited too. So when I finally got it, I was excited to jump on and just to see you.
Yeah.
And chat. But I agree. I think parents and teachers and everyone, staff overall, are going to have to figure out what works. And in the spring, internet was a problem. Just being able to connect and have multiple Zooms and multiple Google Meets going on at the same time where people aren't frozen.
Right.
Was hard.
Right.
I know the fact that just hold on 1 second, and like you and I were talking the other day of having our kids at home and trying to work and say, I can't, hold on 1 second, I can't play right now. I can't sit down and eat with you right now. I'm eating while working.
Right.
It's hard for me.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a new era. It's a new adventure.
Right.
To put it away. But with every roller coaster ride, we have our up and downs, and at the end, we're like, wow, that was a good ride, and maybe we won't want to do it again. I know I wouldn't want to do COVID again, but we'll be prepared. And so hopefully, we'll be better.
Yeah.
And this is just adding to our teaching.
So speaking of being better, one of the things that I'm going to read a quote from the book that you and I both actually highlighted and underlined because it really resonated with both of us. Dr. Brackett said, "We all believe that our feelings are important and deserve to be addressed respectfully and fully. But we also think of emotions as being disruptive and unproductive at work, at home, and everywhere else." So, why? Because I had a follow up question, but first, my first question is, why did you underline? Why did you highlight that quote? Like, what resonated for you?
I think just what we were talking about, the emotional roller coaster that we were just on, where we said in the spring of trying to work, and we know both in ILT, a lot of the majority of us have kids, and some are little, some are older. We have pets, so we have,
or even older parents. Some people are taking care of older parents.
And older parents,
Yeah.
And at one point or another, we had to either shut off our screen and listen in, or they were on camera with us. We heard a kid yelling or crying, or an animal barking or meowing, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, saying if they're
hey, Salenza, you never know.
Hey, right? And we even saw Marcus's new pup who
yes.
was trying to train. So I think that even though we want our emotions to be accepted, we also felt that they were interrupting our work life. And as much as they were interrupting our work life, they were interrupting everyone else's. Like the dog's routine of going out, our kids' routines. And like my kid said, it's like, are we going to keep doing this every day? Are we going to keep where I have to play by myself? And I know he's an only child, but the difference is with my parents, he can just sit and play.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to this, and we want all our feelings to be addressed and respected by our leadership, by our colleagues, it's very hard because it could also be, I just wanted to get this done.
Yeah.
And that emotion or that whatever it was, it disrupted.
Yeah.
But it's a new life. So
yeah.
I know as when I have department meetings, same thing has happened. And there have been times where I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I just have to get off camera 1 second because he bumped his head
right.
And I feel awful.
Right.
But, there's a lot of.
Yeah. I think that, no, I think, when pre-COVID, right, when we would go to work, we were at work. And theoretically, whatever had been happening at home, let's say, was supposed to stay at home. But of course, that's not how our emotions actually work, right? Like, right. So I think about that now, and I think about how we can no longer ignore how everything that happens to us in a day influences our emotions and how the rest of our day goes, right? So like so if I have a fight with my husband in the morning, and if it's pre-COVID, I could go to work. Maybe because I'm at work, I can turn it off a little bit more, but it's not like, that emotion is still underlying everything, even if I'm consciously trying to ignore it. If I'm home, then it's even harder to ignore, right? And so then that emotion, like I'm here and he's in the next room, like now it's even more present. So this I think the idea that emotions are disruptive to work and that we can somehow like turn them on or off is kind of silly anyway. So now we have this reckoning of needing to say, no, these emotions exist. And so if we can learn how to better manage them, then we can be more productive. But managing them is not the same as ignoring or burying, because you can't do that.
Right. And if you look in the book right after that, where we're talking about ignoring emotions, there's a thing that we talked about. It says the irony is that when we ignore our feelings,
right,
or suppress them, they only become stronger.
Right.
So what I said, like either one of us could have a fight with our husband, and then we could kind of turn it off at work if we get a text message or a phone call or something from them. Whether we can't answer it or we can at a later point or listen to it. But at home, if they're with you, you're seeing them. It's harder to turn off. Anything could be a trigger.
Right.
And if we start ignoring them, they're just gonna get suppressed, and eventually it's gonna explode. I always tell my students, pre-COVID, when we were in class and they would be angry or frustrated. Our feelings are like, take a 20-ounce soda bottle, and if I start shaking it every time I'm angry, or every time you're angry, or you say a word that hurts, that bottle is gonna it's getting ready to explode. Yeah. So if I open the cap, the bottle's gonna explode. It's gonna go everywhere. Right. You're gonna get dirty. I'm gonna get dirty. But the most of the soda is gonna fall on me. Right. So that's where the most pain is. Right. However, if I take that soda bottle after it's been shaken so much and I start talking about it little by little, and I start letting the air out little by little, it starts fizzing out. It starts calming down. Our emotions start calming down, and we're able to work through it to the point where when it's finally opened and unraveled, we're all settled. That's such a good analogy. But because we do get angry. Yeah. How many times have we just snapped like this because of something, and then we're like, oh, I didn't mean it towards that person or anything. Right. But the words have already come out. Right. And although the person may say, I understand, it's okay, it's already happened. Yeah. I love that analogy. Yeah. No, I love that. Well, and the other thing too, we've been talking about kind of like anger and fighting. There's also the buildup of stress and anxiety, right? And one of the things that that I read about in this book, which totally, I was like, yes, I've seen this happening. I know this to be true. He talks about, let's see if I can find this. Well, first of all, there's this statistic that totally just makes me very sad. There's a statistic in here that says anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 25% of children between 13 and 18 years old. So I can tell you, that out of the students that come down to counseling, it's definitely more than that. Anxiety that we've seen at Rockville is the main thing we deal with. Wow. It could be anything. It's anxious of coming to school or going into a classroom or not knowing anyone. It's just an overwhelming thing with our youth. Wow. To the point where we have students that parents will try to drop them off and keep driving. It's just the idea of pulling into the school parking lot. It's overwhelming. We have had times where counselors or administrators have gone out to the cars to talk to the kids. And we see it in younger kids too. Kindergarten, as early as kindergarten or pre-K, where kids start crying. And I think it's where, no, you got to go to class, and boom, and push them along. It's not understanding it, like walking them through it and understanding their feelings of what causes that anxiety or that anxiousness. So I was going to ask, what are there, have you and the counselors observed any like trends or patterns to like what contributes to students' anxieties? I think it's a lot, honestly, it has a lot to do with social media. And the isolation of it. Wow. Because you have social media, you're hiding behind text messages, you're hiding behind an avatar or whatever. Even now, like if I were to turn off my camera, I could be talking to you and be doing a million other things. That has a lot to do with it, where kids don't go out anymore. Kids don't just go to the park and come back with scraped knees. Yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Where parents come to the school and say, well, my kid's always on the phone. Well, take the phone away. Well, they're always on the computer. Which is now that whole problem is now exacerbated. Right. Which is so kids with no computers now and no internet. Now we're providing everything. Now the county is even saying, the county has even gone as far as, which is great, provides kindergarten and younger children with touchscreen Chromebooks.
Right.
Because that's what they know.
Right.
How many times do your kids go on the screen and like, why isn't it working? Because that's what they know. So I think like the early onset of giving them iPads or giving them tablets affects them because they just are by themselves and they can play on their own versus with other kids. And socializing, unfortunately, with COVID is going to affect even more kids because you can't socialize.
So I feel like, and I've seen, signs of the awareness for sure of the county of some of these problems. Like when I'm looking at the draft, right, which is still technically a draft of the schedule, I'm encouraged by the break times. I'm encouraged by the multiple references to social emotional learning, because it sounds like we have to try to mitigate whatever negative consequences might come from all of this screen time and all of this like separation from other humans, physical separation. We're going to have to try and mitigate that as best we can. Throughout.
You're gonna have to that if I could do it on the computer at home, why do I got to go back to the building?
Yeah. So
it's not going to be easy, but I am hopeful that with more of the social emotional component being brought up, that we're able to help our students and our staff, because it's also going to affect our staff.
Yeah, 1,000%. So one of the, I was looking for this when we were talking, this was on page 27. As part of like the 5 reasons emotions matter, one of the reasons, the first one he mentions is the correlation or connection between emotions and attention, memory, and learning, which obviously means a great deal to us in our work in education. And he's got this quote here by Plato that says, all learning has an emotional base. And I just think that's really, really powerful. And it makes me think about, my year at Magruder. And I had this like incredible group of students that year. And they cared about their education so deeply. But some of them, it was like not to an extreme, but the way they were processing and managing the stress and anxiety of being juniors and wanting to like get scholarships and get into good schools and everything. There were a couple of days when I had to stop like the learning that I had planned, because I looked out and all I saw were like kids stressed out. Like some of them were crying. Like if they'd come from, I remember one day in particular, there was like a big math test and a lot of them didn't do well. And I just realized, I was like, there's no learning happening here. Like I recognized, like it didn't matter how great my lesson was. There was no learning taking place because half of that class was processing or not processing the stress of that test that they just took and thought that they failed. So we had to stop. Like we just stopped, and I passed around graham crackers and we had a conversation, because I was like, it was silly to keep going. And I think I knew that I didn't want to hold them accountable for the learning that I had originally planned when it was very obvious that they were not in the mental space to be able to do that. Like we just had to start the next day.
And I think you hit it right on the head where you're like, stopping, recognizing that your students needed a stop, because then you would have given them a test or a quiz or something, or an assessment, and then what? They would have failed, and
then the cycle would have continued.
Yeah. Stress, it would have built onto the stress.
Right.
And I think that what you said is, we all know that comfort food. So that graham cracker,
yes,
it could have been someone's lunch.
Right.
It could have been someone's breakfast.
Right.
It could have been like, oh my God, this brings me back to my childhood.
Right.
But those 40 minutes that you took gave them a break for the rest of their day.
Right.
It broke up.
Right.
And so I think with going back to the book and the county thing, and with, Billie Jean talking now and saying, hey, it's okay to know your kids when you need to stop
Yeah.
and reassess them.
Yeah.
And just assess the situation and figure it out. And we have to become more and more comfortable with that, because yes, we're told this is the curriculum, this is what we need to teach them.
Yeah.
We have 180 days, this is what we need to do.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm kind of excited about this opportunity. I hate the pandemic, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of excited about the forced freeing of this notion that, oh, you have to cover X, A, B, C, A through Z, because we can't this year. And not that we shouldn't try to, like, absolutely content is still important, but I feel like teachers have been under so much pressure for so long to cover this material that may or may not actually be realistic in terms of what you're able to cover, and how much. I mean, that's a discussion for a whole nother day, but that creates stress. Oh, let me include this statistic.
And then I want to go back to your point about something.
Yeah. So on page 15, he said that they did a survey of 5,000 educators, and nearly half report high stress on a daily basis. They felt like they spent 70% of workdays feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, and stressed. And we've seen that. We know that.
Yeah, we know that.
We know that. And I think part of it is that we don't have enough time, like, to do everything. And people feel like they can't stop and pass graham crackers around, because if they do, they're not going to cover this. The kids aren't going to do well in this. It's going to reflect on their observation, la, la, la. So I'm kind of excited about the potential opportunity to kind of release us from some of that.
And I think that's, you and I were both on that, it was that podcast with Cornelius and...
Kylene Beers, Cornelius Minor and Kylene Beers. Yes, two teachers talking. Yes.
Teachers talking. And I think it was one of them that brought up where we were always, in the spring, we all talked about, the majority of us talked about, we have to catch them up. We have to catch them up. We have to get the kids catch up.
Yeah.
And her thing was, to what?
Right.
Everything is on pause.
Yeah.
And so even myself, I was like, we have to catch them up. Like, how are they being left behind? You know, we don't want them to be behind on things.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it. Like, that's an overwhelming feeling for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It's an overwhelming feeling for students and for parents.
Yep.
The idea of, did they learn everything they needed to graduate? Well, guess what? They graduated.
Right.
And they're going to move on. And they're going to learn whatever they need to learn. And maybe it is a time to take a pause and say that nothing is black and white. There might be some gray.
Yeah.
And even in the other book that we're reading in ILT, Onward,
yes,
talks about these feelings and permission to feel. And going back to that page that you had said on 27 and the 5 areas where our feelings matter most.
Yes.
One of the chapters talks about sleep. And sleep being... mine's over there with my pot. But it talks about sleep and the importance of sleep.
Yes.
And if you think about it, if we don't have sleep, it affects our feelings.
Yep.
It affects our emotions.
Yep. I'm sleeping more. Are you sleeping more?
I'm sleeping more.
Me too.
I'm sleeping much more.
Me too.
And sometimes now it's like, don't talk to me before a certain amount of time. No, it used to be 5:15, 5:30.
Yeah.
And I know that some of our administrators are probably even before that. I know Billie Jean, sometimes it was 3:30, 4:30. Like you, our brain is going on topics of, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do. And it's not that it's not doing that anymore, but we don't have the commute. We don't have that drive. So I think that has given us that extra bit.
Yeah.
And plus, not getting up and saying, I have to get dressed for work the way we used to.
Right. I do like that. I do like the extra sleep, and I do like the extra time I've had to exercise. That's been really powerful.
But if you think about it, going back to the emotions in this,
yes,
is if you were sleep deprived,
yep,
and you wouldn't go to work at Rockville,
mm-hmm,
and you had to be there at 7,
mm-hmm,
and you're exhausted, you didn't sleep, and you're teaching. Your teaching may not be the way you wanted it to be,
right,
or your teaching might be a little off, or your decision making, or the way you say no to something or yes to something might change dramatically.
right. I'm relocating, by the way. Sorry. I think the family is going to eat lunch, so I'm coming out to the sunroom so we don't have to hear the meeting. Because this is the new normal.
Yeah, that's the new norm.
That's the new norm.
The lighting, the this, that, it all, all new. But I think that impacts our decision making.
Yes.
And having exercise, having a different routine. And
yes.
I think that makes a important point with what the plan in the county's draft is.
Yes.
And that time, those breaks where, we need to look into our social emotional. We need to have that time for
mm-hmm.
our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to proceed, because this is hard on the kids. And I think a lot of kids were excited to go back for sports,
right,
and band and music and all these extracurricular activities, and now it's gone.
There was something. Yeah, no, you're right. There was an article that I actually printed out. I haven't read it yet. I skimmed it, but it was about. Oh, hi guys, I'm still recording. They found me. I tried to.
We're playing.
Hi.
You're playing here? I thought you were eating lunch. That's why I came in here.
Are you guys ready to join and talk about feelings?
Can you show?
Sure. Okay. Well, so I need to go back to the library. Is that what?
Yes.
All right. There's the house. There's the Lego house.
Well, we're still working on it, but.
Good. All right. Well, keep building. I like everything you've done so far.
When we finish lunch,
okay.
Move back to the library.
Where are you going? Because I need to be.
Finish lunch.
Okay.
And then move back to the library.
Okay. Can you close the door behind you? Thank you so much. Okay. I need to like access my mood meter.
I have it here. What would you like to? What would you like?
I think. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna go with irritated. That would be yes. That would.
That's
lively. No, I am both energized and irritated. But I will get over being irritated, and then I shall just be it will just be energized. But yeah, that's like right. So this exchange that just happened is going to happen to us 1,000 times, and it's really hard. It's really, really hard to like feel like you're in a flow or be in a flow, and then if you have kids or like whatever it is, like that's life, just interrupts and just totally throws your flow, and then you have to be able to get yourself back, right?
Yeah, and I think not only kids, but like we were talking before, like our spouses or our significant others.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're gonna probably roll your eyes at me, but there's this world I discovered, as you know, this world of TikTok, which the whole world had been discovered pre-COVID, and I probably discovered it, and I've driven my husband crazy with it. I'm like, oh my God, look what I learned there. We need to buy this. But there's this thing where, like, you and I are working right now, and we're talking and having this amazing conversation, and then let's say someone else was recording, and my husband would be going behind the camera dancing, for example, and making jokes for your kids. And the thing is, that's life. Like,
yep.
And just because our work schedule looks different than someone else's, you teach one period,
right?
But you're doing staff development work the rest of the day,
right? And your schedule's all over the place. I mean,
I don't even know what I'm doing sometimes because it's like meetings after meetings. Like I have 4 Zooms on 4 or 5. I have 6 Zooms on Thursday.
Wow.
2 of them overlap. So one of the counselors has to go to one of them because I have to be an ILT. But hey.
Wow. Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Well, and I think that's where hopefully this learning around emotions, like understanding, and you and I are going to talk in future episodes about the ruler approach that Dr. Brackett proposes, which is really, again, like in part to, yes, help understand our emotions, but ultimately to also help us best regulate our emotions so that, and to be more in, not even in control of them, but know how to respond when we feel a particular way, and know how to respond in a way that's healthy and not going to cause more stress or anxiety. And that's all connected to, you mentioned Onward, which is the other book we've been reading. It's all connected to this idea of resilience because we're going to, and then also, well, I left my book in the other room, but, you know, I'm a big Brene Brown fan. And so I just started reading Dare to Lead, and it all connects. Like we have, you know, she talks a lot about being a courageous leader and needing, if you're going to be a courageous leader, you have to rumble with vulnerability. And I just think more than ever, these times call for us to be open and honest and vulnerable, and to say, you know, in the middle of a meeting, like, I can't pretend that my kids didn't just irritate me. Like, they totally did. And that's okay because that's where we're at right now. And I think doing it, you know, showing that vulnerability, showing that humanity only makes our connection to one another stronger, because now you don't have to feel embarrassed. Like, you don't have to have any of those feelings of shame if your son interrupts. Like, happens to everybody. It is what it is. And so we're not trying to like bury emotions that are there. It's just,
it makes it more real.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you go to the store and you bump into a student and a student looks at you so awkwardly, like, yeah. And in our head, I'm like, yeah, I'm a human too. I go to the store.
Right.
I don't think I've ever said this, but I felt the same way once, a very long time ago, and I was actually telling, I think, my mom about it. And I went to the shopping center, you know, in Rockville where the Target is, and there's like a Marshalls and the Barnes and Nobles.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't think Billie Jean's gonna remember this, but I think it was her first year. It was either the back to school night or we're doing some evening event, and I ran into Marshalls and she was there, and I was like, oh my God, what's she doing here? Walks in Marshalls, and I was thinking it was a student, you know, looking at a teacher, and I'm like, should I hide? Should I go? What do I do? And we obviously, the awkwardness went, we said hi to each other, you go on, you move on, you leave.
Yeah.
But it makes it real.
It does.
And that moment felt, okay, next time I see her, hey, what's up, whatever, you move on.
Yeah.
But it makes it real for kids. And I think what you had just experienced makes it real.
Yeah.
And when it happens to directors, or it happens to these, you know, our leadership, our principals, or other people in higher positions, and it happens to them, it's like, oh, okay, it's not just me, and you don't feel as bad.
Right.
And that level of anxiety starts dropping.
So I've only read like 20 pages of Dare to Lead, but she recounts a story in which she was speaking to like a huge crowd of CEOs and CFOs, and they're called C level, like the letter C and then level, which, by the way, is so outside of my realm of understanding. Like, I'd never heard that term before. And I was like, I'm in the world of education. I don't know. Anyway, you know, it's like, okay. So, but she talks about how nervous she was. And ultimately she received this advice, and then like other, you know, kismet things happened, where what calmed her nerves was to think people. Like, these are all just people. We're all just people. And yes, we might be in different levels of power and positions of power, and we have different skill sets and all of that. But at the end of the day, we're just people. And I think that also just connects to this idea of, and we're all just people dealing with our emotions. And that helps us also, I think about other people with this measure of grace, right? And understanding. Like, we're all people, we're doing the best we can. And that goes for our students too. And that's really important. And our colleagues, like everybody. And we're all just people, and we're just trying to make it through all this.
And for our students' parents.
Yes.
Because it's hard on parents where they have kids in all grade levels.
Yes.
And figuring it out. And those families that may have one laptop or one Chromebook because they haven't been able to go get another one.
Right.
The internet is rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all people.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to close our episode with this statement. I think this is at the end of the prologue, and this connects to what we've just been saying, which is so perfect and fantastic. So he says, Dr. Brackett writes, "We all want our lives to be filled with healthy relationships, compassion, and a sense of purpose. That we can make happen." And then he says, Uncle Marvin, who is like his inspiration and who tried to bring a lot of social emotional learning into schools, he says, "Uncle Marvin showed me how. It starts with the permission to feel, the first step of the process." And I love that we took our first step of our process today.
I love it too. If I were to go back to our ruler.
Yes, our mood meter.
How you asked me, how am I feeling?
Yes.
And I said I was excited and anxious and nervous and all that. I'm still very excited.
Yes.
Excited for episode 2. Can we record tomorrow? Kind of.
Yeah.
So energized. I'm ecstatic that I feel it went well.
Yes.
Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. And I'm like, I feel more relaxed and chill, actually, which is kind of high energy and low energy.
Yeah.
But I'm relaxed. Because I'm like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel also still very energized. And I would say I am also feeling very grateful. And yes, and I'm feeling grateful to you for like doing this with me, and that I'm grateful that we already had the kind of friendship and professional relationship that like allowed this to happen.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So
yeah, and it just felt like a normal conversation, like sitting in the back of your house or at school or in my house or something. So that was really nice. Yeah.
Well, I'm hopeful. I will add that I am hopeful that at some point in the not so distant future, we can record more episodes where we're in person and but able to sit next to each other and have a conversation.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And I think that, in our next episode, we can probably talk about the 5 skills that were identified for the emotion.
Yes.
I think that would be a good starting point, and where they say, we need to teach teachers first.
Yep.
About recognizing their emotions and recognizing the emotions within them.
Yep.
And how that could be presumed as a bias.
Right.
At society. And then also recognize the emotions in our students.
Yep.
So I think that would be a great way to kick off our next episode.
I love it.
Love it too.
All right. Well, I'm going to say to all of our listeners out there who hopefully will be listening. We're presuming there will be listeners, but I guess we'll say thank you for listening. And we hope that you will join us again in episode 2.
Yep. And if they have any ideas or suggestions or would like to join us one day,
yes.
You can just let us know. It's Permission to Feel, and they can purchase the book or audio on Amazon.
Yes.
Not being paid for advertisement.
Nope.
But it's a great book.
It is.
Let us know.
Yes. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay. I'm going to stop recording. I stopped recording on the Zooms, and I'm just trying to stop recording over here. Oops.
My phone did not stop going off.
Well, I think that went really well. Why isn't this coming up? Come on. Oh, there it goes.